I don't know why I thought about this earlier, but while we were talking, I thought about um, my kids wanted to go see there's a new Transformer movie. I think it's called Transformer One or Transformer Prime. I can't remember. I didn't think I was going to like it, but it turned out that I really liked it. I thought it was pretty good,
Is
but I
this
wanted
the animated one?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I'm at least familiar with it. I have obviously have not seen it, but I do recognize that particular film. I haven't watched the most recent live action one either.
Oh, I think I saw the first Transformer movie, live action one, and the Bumblebee one, and that's because my kids wanted to watch it. But I haven't seen it. But we went and saw Transformers One in the theater, and I would say I was pleasantly surprised.
Well, that's good to hear because
Yeah,
I felt like they were running long. is
yeah.
maybe the nice way to put it.
So they so it's an animated. It's animated. It's a origin story. It tells how Optimus Prime came to be Optimus Prime. I don't know if it matches with the cartoon or the comics or I don't know if it matches with the original canon. It explains where it gives their origin story, and I really enjoyed it. Chris Hemsworth is the voice of Optimus Prime, and I think it's the first time that the previous actor that voiced Optimus. This is the first time. I cannot remember the previous actor's name, but this guy's been doing the
Yeah,
voice of
it's
Optimus
Peter
Prime
something.
he's been doing it for decades, and so this is the first departure from that, and it makes sense because of because it's an origin story. I mean, at the beginning of the movie, he's not Optimus Prime; he's Orion Pax, and Keegan Michael Key is in it. He does a voice. He's hilarious, um, but there's actually quite a lot of good actors in there. Scarlett Johansson, Steve Buscemi, Lawrence Fishburne,
Oh
John
wow.
Hamm. Yeah, like it was not a, you know.
So it's what you legitimately call a star-studded cast.
Yes, yes. I mean, it was, they with the cast they spared no expense. It seems so, and it's like one of those things. Like I don't.
Peter Cullen, by the way.
Okay.
It took me a moment to remember the last name, but yeah.
Oh wow, that's nice. Yeah. So, um, yeah, it was good. They threw a. I there was a. I don't want to. I'll leave it for you. But there was a joke that references a Key and Peele skit in the movie, and it was so good. And I know that my kids didn't get it, and so I made them watch this Key and Peele skit that was referenced in the movie, and then said, "Do you remember this line from the movie?" And they're like, "Yeah," and they thought it was great. So it's got that the writing was good. I mean to throw stuff like that, that's an example of like the writing was good, like the story was good. I enjoyed it. Um, this isn't I could see this being a thing. It's like, hey, these actors they want to branch out, maybe do something a little different, and then but it wasn't solely like they wanted a bigger mansion. They wanted it wasn't just for the money. I wouldn't think it was. There's some artistic value in it.
Interestingly, I have hope that the next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, it's planned to be live action, but I'm hoping that it follows the same kind of vein where it's really an investment in the story and not just trying to capitalize on the franchise.
Yeah. See, I was such a. I haven't seen. I really haven't seen anything since the early '90s as far as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles go. I think I tried watching
2 or 3.
Two. I saw three. Actually, a friend of mine in New York was in. He was an extra in 3.
Okay.
He's Korean, and I don't know. I guess I don't know where they were recording it, but he was 19 at the time, so he's a bit older than both of us, and he somehow landed. He was an extra, because there was the whole feudal Japan samurai story that was in number 3, and he was an extra in feudal Japan.
So I will say the animated one that they did not too terribly long ago, like it's been a few
2010s.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one was pretty good, and it gave me
Okay.
hope for where they were going with the story. What is planned to be released is titled The Last Ronin, which I believe is a reference to Raphael being kind of the last man standing, so to speak, because of whatever their course of events. But I'm hoping that it really does justice to the characters the way they're supposed to be. I mean, it's difficult to make that statement and thinking back to the cartoons and how goofy and how lighthearted they could seem. But the idea of turtles in general was very dark if you really wanted to take a step back and pay attention to the subplot. And I want to see some of that on screen. The animated one kind of touched on some of it, not to the extent that you would really pick up on it if you didn't know the story, the underlying story well. But
You're talking about the comic story?
Yes, but it wasn't the lighthearted, campy versions of the Turtles that we got prior. And so I liked it, and I really hope that it continues in that direction with this one. Because it's not supposed to be overly lighthearted. It's not supposed to be overly dark either. Like, don't get me wrong that it goes the opposite extreme. But there's a balance to be struck between this is a funny story about mutated turtles as opposed to the actual ramifications of what the story deals with from a developmental standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, for me as a kid, and I was an 80s kid, a little bit of a 90s kid, but I was mostly a 90s teenager. I loved the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were, that was my favorite for a long, long time. And I knew about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles based on exactly what was intended to be done with them. Not the creators of the turtles, but the popularizer. I'm sure you're familiar with the whole. Let's find some characters so we can make a cartoon that kids watch, so that we can sell some toys, because the money was in the toys,
right?
The action figures. And so for me, I thought the progression of things was it was a cartoon, and they made toys for the cartoon because we want to play with the toys, which that is correct. But I thought the comic books came after. I never read the comic books. I never had access to the comic books, but I had assumed that the comic book came after, which that's untrue. So, but I do remember in 1990 seeing a TV spot for the live action movie and being confounded. I remember thinking to myself, literally, can they do this? Because I didn't know that they could take an animated afternoon show and turn it into a live action movie. I didn't know that they could do that. I was like, this is not possible. But I love the first live action movie. I thought it was excellent, and I still like it.
I actually still like the first two. The
second one, I don't.
The second one was a bit campy.
It's a lot campier,
but it was still okay.
Well, I think the second and the third one are watchable.
Well, that's a whole different category. Like, if we go okay versus watchable, I think all of them are watchable.
Well, yeah. Well, so in my head, I went to that scene from A Clockwork Orange. I guess anything could be watchable if somebody's holding your eyes open and keeping them moistened. Yes, but I mean, it's like I rarely turn something off, and so I guess I could say it's more than I didn't mean watchable and literally, but I mean it. I think the same way that you were meaning it. It's not bad. Like, I don't hate it. It doesn't,
Yeah,
it's not a pain to watch.
And I've mentioned multiple times that there are very few films I will turn off. I will always try to find something that is a redeeming quality to watch the film for. I have never started and turned off any of the Turtles movies. So it has that going for it.
I think that for me, the second one, I enjoy it, but it is really goofy. Like I was disappointed. I will say, having even as a kid, I found the second one disappointing in comparison to the first one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So like I think I was probably 10 or 11 when I saw the second one, and I was like, "Oh, this is disappointing." But I'll also say I found Batman Forever to be disappointing. I remember watching it and thinking, "This is a blockbuster movie."
We don't need to go down this road.
Oh. Okay, you at least acknowledge it. So I know what so I know what you consider unwatchable because you don't even acknowledge it.
True. I will at least acknowledge Batman Forever exists.
And
I do not own it.
Robin is worse.
Yeah, and I don't own that one either.
I mean, Batman and Robin is so bad.
True. There no argument from me on that one. So it's funny. I was thinking about it as I was categorizing Batman films in Plex, redoing everything. I have Batman and Batman Returns, and then it skips to Batman Begins. And it's intentional. I acknowledge the other ones exist, but they don't deserve to be in my library. Ever. Under any circumstances. Because there is no way in hell I will ever go back and watch them.
Huh. See, Batman Forever, like I said, was very, like, I was like, huh, this is not a, I was, as a, I know I saw it on the first time. I didn't see it in the theaters. I remember wanting to see it in the theaters, but I remember I was 15 when I saw it on VHS, and I remember thinking, this is, and because you know what, Batman from 1989, both Michael Keaton Batmans were really good. Batman Returns wasn't as good as the first, and I know it didn't do well, but it was a hell of a lot better than Batman Forever. But Batman Forever is still better than watchable, whereas Batman and Robin is borderline unwatchable. And I would, at this point, I was like, the only way I'd ever willingly would want to watch it again is if there's a Mystery Science Theater version of Batman and Robin. I would love to see a Mystery Science Theater version of Batman and Robin.
So I can follow along with your theory, because for me, while I will never touch it again, Batman Forever was at least directed by Schumacher. And there are a number of things that Schumacher directed that I have found enjoyable. And so there are aspects of the action that are classic or trademark Schumacher that I can...
The nipples?
That I can at least enjoy. Not the nipples. Nobody loves the nipples. But
that was Schumacher, though.
It was. But that's not the aspect of his directing that I'm referring to.
That's what I think about when I think about Schumacher
no,
and the nipples.
I get it. I really do, unfortunately. But Batman Forever has such limiting, redeeming qualities to me. Like the only real thing that's redeeming is that Clooney is in it. And he doesn't do a good job, and it's horrible, but he's in it. Like there's a...
He was paying bills with that one. I think he even said that in an interview.
Probably. Like there's no way he thoroughly invested himself in that role in any way, shape, fashion, or form. And you can tell the acting is so horrifically subpar for him.
Yes. Well, I mean...
Well, for everybody, but for him specifically. Like if you watch him in anything else, at least that I can think of off the top of my head... His acting is much better than it was in that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of a disaster. So, I think, let's say I can't say that I'm a fan of Schumacher. And maybe it's because I have seen too many of his movies that I didn't like. I'll come back to this because I want to stay on I want to stay on Batman for a moment more, but. I think do you remember who directed Batman Forever? I cannot. Was that also Schumacher?
It might have been. Here, let's look.
Yes, it was. It was.
I was going to say I do not remember for sure. So the one that I like Schumacher for was The Lost Boys. I thought it was a phenomenal film, and that was where I first really knew his name from. And so there's a little bit of a willingness to forgive other things because that was
Yeah,
my
for sure.
introduction to Schumacher. And I
For
thought,
sure.
if nothing else, The Lost Boys was I have nothing that I dislike about The Lost Boys, even going back and watching it now. It was a great film.
I want to watch it because I do. It's a vampire movie, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I like vampire movies, and I haven't seen it, and I know that it's a good movie, and I want to go back and watch it.
And I do have it, so you have access
yeah.
to it.
I figured you did based on how you're talking about it. I forgot that he directed the Client, which was a great movie. I did enjoy The Client, and that's what he did right before he started ruining his career with Batman Forever.
That's a very good way to describe it.
Um, yeah, he's. I mean, they call him the man who killed Batman, and but see, so I think what put him on the map was St. Elmo's Fire. And I kept hearing, there was a point in time a few years ago, I kept hearing St. Elmo's Fire reference and equality. I would say the other one I do want to watch from him is Flatliners. I'll say that as well. I haven't seen it, heard it was good. I wonder if it holds up. But when I watch it, I'll try to watch it remembering the context. I'm old enough to at least understand the context. But I watched St. Elmo's Fire, which is I think what put him on the map, and it's got a lot of people that you would say, oh yeah, this is a great cast. It was the Brat Pack. It was Rob Lowe, Emilio Estevez, Demi Moore, Judd Nelson, Ali Sheedy. They're all in that movie. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great because like I'm hearing about how it was a great movie. I'm hearing about how it put Schumacher on the map, and or it was maybe his breakthrough directorial movie, and it's got a great cast who have gone on to do other things. That movie was shit. Like
I have not watched it, so I'm relying completely on your descriptions here.
The reason the movie is shit is because it's just a bad story. Like there's, it's not even necessarily plot holes. It's just like the drama that they're trying to create, which is there's legitimate drama, but they created it in the worst way possible. And it's like, I'll tell you how to solve your problem in 5 minutes. And it's just not like the struggles that they went through are just not believable. That's what made it so bad. And I don't know why people, other than nostalgia, there's a special place in their heart, and nostalgia is why people say it's such a good movie. And maybe I just can't understand the context because I was, 3 or 4 years old when it came out, and it's about 20 somethings struggling, and it was just really not a good movie.
So there are only 2 other movies that I know that I enjoy from Schumacher, which is actually kind of funny if you think about me giving weight to him being the director anyway. Like the Lost Boys was my introduction to him, but Phone Booth and The Number 23 were the other 2 films from him that very vividly stick in my memory. So Phone Booth was famously the one with Colin Farrell, where it all took place at a specific location, which was a phone booth, and very few scenes outside of that. And I really enjoyed how he was able to tell a story around one location. And this may just be my behind the snes affinity for certain aspects of his ability to tell a story, because I don't necessarily think Phone Booth was a great film in and of itself, but it was novel and very well done from the standpoint of, if you have this one setting, how can you use this setting to tell an entire story? And then The Number 23 being one of Jim Carrey's first more serious roles. And I don't know how much of my affinity for that film is actually Schumacher as opposed to Jim Carrey's performance. But those are the only other two films that I could say off the top of my head that I even know Schumacher was involved with that I enjoyed. So I would say take my affinity for him and, Batman Forever with a grain of salt, with that knowledge also present.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you said that, my head went to Tarantino. You can slice his career in such a way that he's only directed 9 movies, and he's had a profound impact on movie making, whether you like him or not. And I think he said he's only going to do one more movie. I think that there was I read somewhere that the plan was he had 10 movies, and he was he's gonna make a career out of doing 10 movies. And he's done that wouldn't include things like Four Rooms or Sin City, where he was he directed a portion of it. But it's quality, not quantity.
Yes.
Then it makes me think of I think I'm blanking on his name. I can think of The Shining. Who's the director of The Shining?
Stephen King wrote it.
Right.
Damn, you had to ask.
I know, right?
Looking it up real quick.
Yeah, I am too, and I'm not getting there fast enough.
Stanley Kubrick.
Thank you. I don't think that he had a lot of movies. I don't think he directed that many movies, but he directed just a few. And
overall, he is not, but it's very iconic for the films that he has directed.
Like the majority of them are considered extremely influential.
Well, to me, Kubrick is a lot like Steven Soderbergh, where he chooses projects based on an ability to push an envelope from one aspect or another, and you remember it for that differentiator.
Right.
Whereas someone like Ridley Scott, who is still someone that I would admire from a directorial standpoint, has a more prolific film.
He also
it's
has
not discography, but whatever the
filmography.
Yeah, makes so much sense when you say it afterwards.
Yeah.
But anyway, but he is very iconic as well, and Soderbergh tends to want to play with certain things, as opposed to Scott having a very thematic portrayal of his style. Much like J.J. Abrams has a very specific style. And you can say that they all gave a very solid mark on the art and profession, but in very different ways. And I appreciate both sides of that, right? Like Soderbergh for his uniqueness and being able to recognize what he has done, and Abrams for his consistency with developing a style that portrays a story. I think both are very valuable. It's just a matter of whether you get a lot of jobs or a few.
Right. Well, I was just thinking, Kubrick didn't need he didn't need a lot. I mean, you can look at the last 6 out of the 7 movies that he directed were released. The first one out of that, from 7 movies back, were released over 60 years ago, and I still hear Doctor Strangelove, released in 1964. Still hear that reference. You still hear 2001 reference. I referenced A Clockwork Orange earlier in this show.
And I mean, Full Metal Jacket and Eyes Wide Shut, the last couple of films in his list are highly prolific and influential.
Yes, and The Shining, and it was still talked about. They even made a sequel to The Shining.
And 44 years ago, put it in perspective, and his impact on filmmaking in general.
I think he and maybe, Alfred Hitchcock might have had the. Hitchcock was before. I would say Hitchcock was obviously before Kubrick, and Tarantino came after Kubrick. But I think those three directors have been like maybe. That's not fair because I'm about to like cut out Spielberg, because Spielberg has been he's had a more mainstream career, but he doesn't do bad. Once there's a point where he didn't do bad movies. I hated Joe. I don't think it was Joe versus no. There's a point where he like he I don't I'm just stammering over here, but I don't think it was ever hard for him to get something greenlit at a certain point in his career, pretty early on in his career. And also Ron Howard. Ron Howard's an excellent director and extremely influential. So I don't want to say.
Well, I mean, and you can go down a rabbit hole here, right? Because Scorsese could suddenly fit in that list, and Coppola. Like there are many directors who are very much influential on the craft. But what you were getting to earlier is that Hitchcock and Kubrick and Tarantino have had an overly impactful presence for what they've done. And that's the difference between them and like Spielberg and Howard and some of these others who have had great careers, do great work, but they're more prolific in what they do. Whereas these other guys were more contained, maybe, or a less numerous body of work, but the same impact that some of these other names have. And it's interesting to see that difference. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing one way or the other. I think it's just that there are some from a directorial standpoint who have a very pragmatic approach to vision that develop a style and everything else, and some who just want to push the envelope. And those who want to push the envelope are remembered for that in and of itself, much less anything else they bring to the table.
I think maybe Hitchcock may not fit into that because he directed a lot more movies, but it was a different time.
That's I mean, you're talking about 20-minute movies as opposed to hour and a half, too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'm not aware of how, like, if they were all, if his directing credits were all feature length movies. So that being said, he's still he passed away over 40 years ago, and still, like, his movies are not just watchable, but they're still influential. I would expect that you've seen Psycho.
Yes.
Did you see the remake of Psycho?
No. I didn't even realize there was a remake.
Yeah, in the late 90s, and they did a remake of Psycho. And it's word for word, shot for shot, with a couple of exceptions, the exact same movie. So I like Psycho, and the remake of Psycho has Vince Vaughn as why can't I think of the actor's or the character's name? Anthony Perkins was the actor. Norman Bates.
Interesting.
Yep. And Anne Heche was Marion Crane, which I found the casting to be really disappointing. I didn't think Vince Vaughn was a good Norman Bates, and I didn't think Anne Heche was a good Marion Crane. Viggo Mortensen was the boyfriend, Sam Loomis.
So I'm so far I have yet to like any of the casting decisions.
William H. Macy was the detective, the private eye that went to check on things and was murdered on the stairs.
Yep, not liking that choice either.
And Julianne Moore was the sister, Marion Crane's sister.
I mean, I don't at least immediately dislike that choice, so I guess that's something.
Yeah, the casting was not good. The only thing that was good about it was things that I'm sure Hitchcock, it's implied, and they went a little bit further in the remake where Norman is peeping on Marion in the shower, and you hear they added a thing where you hear the jingle of an unfastened belt, indicating that he was masturbating. So I think that was in 1960 you just had to assume that, and so
Well, I mean, pre 80s, everything was implied.
right. And I remember when I was a teenager watching it, I was like, okay, that's good. And now I think about it, and I was like, I think the implied was good enough. Like it didn't need to be as explicit, even that explicit. I think what was implied in the original was good enough. But I will say the thing that they did add, it's not worth watching the remake for, but what they did add was when he was committing murders, they had flashes of various images, and that's the only departure that they made from the original movie. Otherwise, it was, other than being in color, it was the exact same. Well, they adjusted the amount of money that Crane stole they adjusted for inflation, but that's it. It was an interesting thing to see. But I also went on and watched. There was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 sequels to Psycho. None of them directed or written by Hitchcock.
I don't know that I would have placed my finger on any sequels.
Yeah, there was a Psycho 2 that came out in 1983 and a Psycho 3 that came out in 1986. And they both and there's this Psycho 4 in 1990. I'm not sure if I watched that one. I think I did. But all of them have Anthony Perkins. Yeah, I did watch it, and none of them are good. But they were capitalizing on the horror genre. It was in vogue in the 80s.
Yeah, attempting to milk the franchise, as it were.
Yes, milk the franchise and milk the genre.
I don't know that I've ever actually watched anything other than the original Hitchcock version of Psycho.
You're not missing anything.
Well, I'm not surprised, but I don't remember when it was. I picked up an anthology of Hitchcock's films, and I watched those. Very similar to the Arthur Conan Doyle Sherlock films. There was at some point an anthology of the early versions of those that I watched as well. And I don't know that I want to watch other variations. It's with Sherlock, at least, you get some of the modern reinterpretations that are actually pretty good. But I don't know that I've ever seen a reinterpretation or remake of any Hitchcock film, much less a sequel, that has ever been decent.
No. I think at this point, I think people have learned to leave Hitchcock alone. Like, it is fairly untouchable.
It actually makes me want to now go back and look at it from my creator viewpoint, and wonder if there is some variation of a story that I might be able to do some sort of justice to. And I say that from the standpoint of everything I've ever watched, all of the Hitchcock films I've always watched as a consumer. I've never watched it from the standpoint of wanting to recreate it or modify it or anything else. It's always been, I enjoy his films and I want to watch them.
Yeah, and there's a number. He's got a lot of movies, but there's some. I guess I fit in. I like the popular ones, but
there's some off the wall ones too.
Yeah. I don't know that I'm that familiar with anything outside of his mainstream movies. I'm trying to think. I'm right now. I'm looking at the list of his directing filmography, and I don't think I've seen anything that's not just his A-list. But I remember as a kid hating Alfred Hitchcock Presents when it came on Nick at Night. It was not for me. Because I was a little kid and I wanted to watch cartoons.
And that's fair.
Yeah. But I can remember, by the time I was a teenager, I remember watching Rope and Rear Window and Psycho. I think the first one I saw was The Birds, because my mom liked The Birds, which there is a sequel to, and it's just as bad as the Psycho sequels. It's really bad. And then as an adult, I watched North by Northwest. I think this might be my favorite one of his.
I don't know if I could pick a favorite.
I'm not sure where to go from here.
Well, I got sidetracked.
Yeah.
Well, I got sidetracked because I saw Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I did not realize that was a Hitchcock film.
Oh, I didn't either. Is it the same? Is it the source, the original that the 2005 movie with Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt?
It seems to be.
Okay.
I mean, so I would have to go back and watch it, but it prompted a story or a rabbit hole of me clicking on links, and the storyline seems to suggest that it is what the Brad Pitt Angelina Jolie version of Mr. and Mrs. Smith is based on. So okay. I will have to go back and follow this rabbit hole during the day when I'm actually paying attention to things.
We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work, or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap. This has been a long week.
Okay.
Just to digress ever so slightly, my left foot has been aching more so than normal, which is the one that's had the ankle issue for a while.
Oh, no.
And then yesterday, right before jiu-jitsu class, I dropped a water bottle on my right big toe. And so I have 2 feet who are aching and problematic, and I'm using whiskey to self-medicate. And so yesterday and today, we've gotten to a point where it's like, all right, I finally don't care one way or another about either foot, but it means that I'm not completely here with regard to Mr. and Mrs. Smith and the discussion thereabouts. I'm, trying to avoid pain in some fashion. And while whiskey is not the best self-medication, it works. So any listener can save their judgment for a different day. In a couple of days, I won't have to worry about the big toe being bruised, and I'll be back to just worrying about the left foot. But until then, I'm trying to ignore both. So that's where I currently am.
Oh, I get you.
Thankfully, the bruising on the underneath of the large toenail on the big toe on the right foot is better 24 hours later. What didn't help is that yesterday was our parents-kids game for the end of the soccer season. And of course I had to participate. Yes, I was running around on a foot and limping and blah, blah, blah. So yesterday was really bad. Today is 100 times better. Tomorrow will probably be about 10 times better. And then we'll be back to normal by the end of the week.
Okay, good.
So, it just happens to be that we're recording on a day where I'm trying to ignore it.